Happy Baldur's Gate launch week. I gotta finish up here so I can go start a solo campaign. Let's talk. What up, viewers? What up? What up? Calc Soups here, and today is Friday, August 4th, and that means it's time for a quick recap of the week in video game news. Like I said, I've already played 6 or so hours of Baldur's Gate, having it launch into out of early access into 1.0 launch yesterday, so I've already gotten my time with it, and I'm having a blast. And it sounds like so is the internet, for a couple reasons. One is it is currently, with a handful of finished reviews, it is currently at a 94 Metacritic. So that is very positive. I would expect nothing less from the Game Award winning studio that made Larian, that made Divinity Original Sin 2, which won Game of the Year a couple years ago. Yeah, so I would kind of expect nothing less. I think taking what they did with Divinity Original Sin 2, adding in a D&D skin kind of made sense, and the way it plays a lot like Divinity, with all the D&D mechanics that I know and love, and hopefully you do too. Yeah, I'm excited to play the game. I'll have a link down below to kind of all the guides to starting and making a character if you've never made a character in 5e. There's a lot of little finicky choices you're making, and you're making one character, but how is that going to fit into the party? Something to consider before jumping into the game. But I'm very excited. I've also played the original Baldur's Gate games. I was more of an Icewind Dale fan, but still played through those ones, and especially Baldur's Gate 2. So excited to run into Minsk and Boo when I can. Everyone loves a giant space hamster, miniature space hamster. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to more Baldur's Gate. I'm going to play some right after this. So looking forward to it. Let me know what your experience so far has been with Baldur's Gate 3, for those of you who are looking forward to it or playing it soon. Got hit with the nostalgia bat this week. It is a little bit past the 30-year celebration of Mortal Kombat. That was actually last year. Mortal Kombat was launched in 92 into arcades, and it's been 30 years, would have been 2022. However, there was kind of a video that I saw on the PlayStation blog, kind of re-celebrating that and kind of getting people excited for Mortal Kombat that launches Mortal Kombat 1, which is a reboot sequel that launches next month. So I bet they're trying to get people hyped up for that. So just got hit with a lot of nostalgia, kind of seeing the different iterations of the characters, and he's seeing Ed Boon talk about kind of its branch into multimedia after it exploded onto the market in the early 90s. So yeah, I'm excited for Mortal Kombat. Hopefully I'll get my hands on a free copy and be able to play through the story like everyone else. Speaking of fighting games, EVO is this weekend, and I think a lot of news is coming out of that. I didn't quite realize that EVO was this weekend. I've been a little bit attached, but one of the big pieces of news was Project L, League of Legends, Riot's, League of Legends based fighter game, as adding a new character. One of the most infamous kind of sword wielders on all of the League of Legends, Yasuo, often overpowered. I think a lot of people ban him when they can, ban him when they can. So it'd be interesting to kind of see how they translate this kind of sword wielder into a 2D fighter. Which also leads to the question of, like, there's characters with guns. I'm very curious how they're gonna have people who are like their main point of interaction with League of Legends is using guns, how they're gonna use those in the game. So yeah, but that was just kind of one of the bigger stories coming out of EVO, so wanted to talk about it here. Going back, there's going to be a lot of stories talking about Baldur's Gate this week. That's like the main portion of my news report this week. But another big point was that they've already reached 500K concurrence, putting them in the top 3 of the Steam charts, right below Counter-Strike and Dota 2, which are always kind of just sitting there. One of the things I wanted to kind of impress is that not very often when a game launches into early access, is there kind of like this second hump. I think a lot of like indie devs, and by no means am I saying that Larian is an indie dev. This is more of kind of the AA space that I would think of, maybe a little bit closer to AAA. But not often do you see, when they launch into early access, kind of that second lift. I think a lot of the times that second bump is a lot smaller than the first one. But this one's starting to seem like it's really much more of like the big main kind of push, which I think it's something to be commended. And yeah, you don't really see that very often, especially for a game that's been in early access for I think 3 years. Back in 2020, August of 2020. So yeah, it's something close to 3 years. But yeah, it's starting to go. It's starting to go off. You're seeing a lot of Twitch streamers play it. Especially with their NSFW mods not turned on. So interesting to see that. But yeah, I just thought it was a pretty interesting that my experience in the industry has been that you don't often see that second lift. But this one's kind of adding a lot more content. Things are getting polished down and kind of focused, and kind of glad to see that. Speaking of sales and numbers and stuff, Nintendo did a big announcement this week. I think probably coming out of an earnings call or something. That Tears of the Kingdom is already on pace to beat Breath of the Wild. It has already sold 18.5 million units, putting it in the top 10 of most sold Nintendo Switch games. Breath of the Wild has sold 30K, but it had only sold like 16 or 17 by the 2 month mark, and so we're a little bit past that now with Tears of the Kingdom, and Tears of the Kingdom's already beaten that with 18.5 million. So yeah, I'm excited to see kind of what the tail looks like for this, and I know that anybody who's got a Switch is probably dusting it off so they can go jump back into Hyrule, and I'm excited to see it, and curious to see what they do more in the series. I also have to return back to it at some point to finish that, because I've fallen off and on several times. But yeah, excited to see more Tears of the Kingdom continue to do well. So yeah, good stuff there. And last but not least, as far as like sales and numbers go, I assume Capcom did a earnings call as well. I guess it's August, so this is the first half or some of that earnings call stuff. But even with Resident Evil 4 launching, remake launching this year, even with I think the success of Resident Evil Village and Lady Dimitrescu, they announced that Resident Evil 2 remake is actually the most sold Resident Evil game. Which I thought was kind of interesting. I remember I picked it up. I mean, I picked up all of them since 7. But yeah, picking that one up and going back and be able to replay, kind of running through kind of a really more classic Resident Evil, at least from what I know of the series. Even though I jumped in late, it felt a little bit more like the classic Resident Evil. So yeah, I like the bottle building kind of format a little bit better. Village is a little bit more open. I liked Biohazard and being kind of stuck in that house. For the most part, but yeah, pretty cool to see that Resident Evil is at the top of the list. So excited about that. It's a new month, and with rolling over the calendar, there's your PlayStation Pluses and your Xbox Game Live with Gold. Did they get rid of that? I think it's no longer called Games with Gold. Anyway, your free monthly games, but not free. But if you want to jump in on Humble Bundles monthly service, they have a couple good games that are up for sale this week. Disco Elysium. So if you sign up for 1 month, you give them $12, and you will get your hands on Disco Elysium, which even though I didn't beat the game, I could highly recommend. Another Game Award staple sweeper. So yeah, I think if you're looking for RPGs to play at some point this month, if you're not playing Baldur's Gate, you can potentially pick up Disco Elysium for $12, which is super cheap and well worth the amount of time that you'll put into it. And you got to be in the right headspace for it. So kind of prepared. Gather all your snacks before jumping into Disco Elysium, because you're gonna be really hooked. It's a great game. Continuing to gather as many horror staples as they can into one game, Dead by Daylight is announcing a new character, a new killer is entering the field. Alien, the xenomorph from Aliens, is coming to Dead by Daylight. I'm actually kind of curious how this is gonna work. I actually think it'd be really cool if, like, rather than the dark spider god that lifts your character up when you die, it's like sends you off to a xenomorph ship or something. That'd be kind of fun. But yeah, there's a new Alien, and this is coming just off the back of Nicolas Cage being put in the game. So now you can have Nicolas Cage versus some aliens. You can do anything in this game. Yeah, I'm always excited to see more stuff for Dead by Daylight. I've been a huge fan of that since it launched in 2016. So yeah, I'm curious all the other DLC that they keep adding. I'm surprised how much legs Dead by Daylight has and how they keep making content. And if they keep making it and people keep buying it, then we're going to keep seeing it. And it's as a beneficial cycle. So excited to see that and hear more about it. Now that most of us have churned off of Diablo 4, at least me and my friends have, especially with Baldur's Gate launching and Remnant launching last week, we've kind of churned out of Diablo 4. But anybody who's looking for more action RPG content, Path of Exile 2 is actually looking pretty good, and they announced how much content will be in the game. And I think there was a trailer that launched this week. They also announced a launch date, and we only have to wait till June. Oh my gosh! So if Diablo 4 left a bad taste in your mouth, you can potentially jump in on some Path of Exile. Sometime next year. Hopefully, you'll have worked through your you'll I don't know what you'll do. You'll have lost. You'll have gained more will to play an action RPG, an intense one, and hopefully with a little bit more depth than Diablo 4 had. But I don't want to be completely negative. I did enjoy my time with Diablo 4, but I think I might be... Well, maybe I just don't like action RPGs. Maybe that's the thing. But if you do like action RPGs, feel free to check out Path of Exile and what they announced this week. I'll have a link down below in the description. Now that Barbie is set to have made $1 billion at the box office, the enemy or the counter position is setting up to start their own cinematic universe. That's right. Hasbro wants to get in on this Barbie money, and they're re-examining the idea of making a Monopoly movie, which I don't think it'd be too interesting. Having a 3-hour movie and then it all ends with a table flip. Someone just gets mad and flips all the tables and knocks over the board, and then you lose your cannon and your puppy dog and your car and top hat and thimble. I'm kind of curious what they do with Monopoly. If Monopoly kind of holds, I mean, it's kind of like potentially like the board game, so I guess there's a little bit to it, but like what is going on in the actual world, and are people gonna like jump for joy when they see like Park Place or Boardwalk on like a street sign or something like that? So curious what they do with a Monopoly movie, but Hasbro kind of wants to get in on that Mattel money, so it'd be curious to see what they do with Monopoly now that Barbie is kind of taken all the oxygen out of the room and made $1 billion. So congrats to Barbie. That's all I've got for this week. Let me know if you feel like I forgot anything down below in the comments. But as always, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this content. If you do, please follow, like, and subscribe to me on YouTube and Twitch so you can see more great content like this. I'll have links down below in the description. Thanks again. I hope you have a super day. I hope you have a super weekend. And I hope you have a super day. Bye.